couldn't sleep last night.
Yeah!
Oh.
It is time to race the Ibis DV9. I'm heading to a cross-country race with a 33-mile option, and I think this bike will be a great choice for that. I did make a couple changes just for the race. I went to clip-in pedals and added a second water bottle. I also made some changes since the last video. These are 165mm cranks. I tend to be more comfortable with shorter cranks, and I'm hoping that I will now have room for a longer dropper post. I also raised the stem to the top position. I've been dealing with some shoulder pain from an old injury, and I'm hoping that raising that up will put less pressure up front and help with that. As far as the race goes, I'm not expecting a whole lot. I haven't raced cross country in a long time, so I really just want to go out, have some fun, and finish. This race is called the Fall Color Festival, held in the Kettle Moraine State Forest in Whitewater, Wisconsin. There are 2 trailheads here with a connector trail between the 2. Typically, I ride one trail or the other with some connector mixed in for about a 1-hour ride. I have done most of the long loop combining both trails and the connector, but I skipped part of it, so it was about 25 miles. I've always wanted to do the full thing, so I thought this race was the perfect motivation to do just that.
Gotta have some fun.
I hadn't been able to ride much in the month or so before this race, so I wasn't sure how much energy I should be using, but the bike pedals so well and rolls so fast on the smooth single track that I probably went a little bit faster than I should have early on. I found myself behind these 2 riders for a little bit, and I should have just tried to settle in behind them and follow them. Instead, I went for the pass and used way too much energy to get around them. As soon as I did that, I went down to get my water bottle. It had electrolytes in it, and it was gone. That changed my strategy real quick. I realized that I was riding the first 5 miles like a 10-mile race.
I lost them. Cannot hang with that pace for the whole race. We're on the connector now. A lot of miles to go. Got to be smart with less water than I would like. If anyone catches me, I'm just letting them go by. And I doubt I will catch anyone. Maybe later if I found some extra energy, but pretty much just out for a ride at this point.
Tire pressure is always a struggle for me during races. I typically run it too high just to get the maximum rolling speed, but this bike rolls so well, even at lower pressure, I really should have started lower. I stopped a few times to let air out, but never got it as low as I wish I would have. These trails are not very rough, but there are a lot of small bumps that add up over time when you're on a hard tail with too much air in the tires. My other rides on this bike that weren't races were definitely a lot more comfortable.
Hope this works.
I was around the halfway mark at this point, and I was really starting to feel my lack of riding.
I would wheelie this again, but it's slower, right? That's all I'm worried about now. Hey, this looks familiar. I'm not gonna do anything cool though. This does too. I'm going slow right now. You know, couldn't sleep last night. I was laying in bed, wondering, thinking if I should do this race at all. I should do a shorter one. With a couple of the body problems I have, I was pretty worried. And right now my body is definitely starting to hurt. But less than 10 miles to go. I think I can make it. Slowly but surely. I just really didn't want to have to give up. Snack time.
This was not the best spot to ride one-handed. I almost crashed as soon as I turned the camera off.
Only a splash of water left. I'm trying to preserve it, but I'm so thirsty.
My hand was starting to go numb at this point, and that was probably due to my shoulder injury and the fact that I was not standing up and moving around on the bike enough. The bike does handle really well in this terrain, and I was very thankful for how light it was on the climbs and how well it rolled on the flat sections. I was greeted near the finish line with some hecklers.
What happened? What happened?
I finished!
I ended up 25th out of 65, which is not that impressive and does not do the bike justice, but sometimes that's not all that matters. If I wanted a better result, I would have done one of the shorter races, knowing that my fitness is not where it needs to be for a race this long.
Pat, nicely done.
Well, everything hurts pretty bad right now, but I did have some fun early on and then survived to the finish, so didn't finish well, but got the job done.
Now I'm going to take it cyclocross racing. I have made a few changes. I added a P&W component stem, XL grips, a dropper lever, and the new carbon loam handlebars. They have added some comfort to the ride, so I've been enjoying that. They are still at the full 800 millimeters wide, so it might be a little bit tricky to make passes. Sometimes you have to shoot some pretty narrow gaps to get around people. I'd like to cut them down a little bit, but it's time to go racing, so we'll see what happens.
And we're off.
This race is called the Grafton Pumpkin Cross, and I started near the back of the 40-rider Cat 5 field. I chose to line up on the outside in hopes that I could make a lot of passes on the start straight. Luckily, I was able to make it up to about 6th by the first corner. I didn't want to be too aggressive early on, so I lost some spots here, but I thought that I could probably make them back by carrying more speed down the hill. I made a couple passes before things funneled into a faster inside line. I tried to make the move around the outside here, but just didn't quite have enough. I like how much room there is to work with to make passes in a cyclocross race versus a single track cross-country mountain bike race. I made the pass there on the inside, and I should have cut left to get inside of this guy, but I waited too long, and the guy I had just passed nearly got back around me, so I had to wait until it opened up again to get by a few more riders. I was using a lot of energy to get by these guys, but being a 30-minute race, I thought maybe I had enough to keep pushing to the end. I was wrong. I should have been a little bit more patient making these passes to save energy, but when the opportunity is there, it's hard not to take it. The bike helped here too. The course was off camber and tight, and this bike is really easy to maneuver. I knew I had made my way to the front of the Cat 5 group, but with the 4 starting just ahead of us, there were plenty of people to chase and try to pass.
Hey, come on, pass all these roadies.
The barrier on the hill made for a great spot to get around people, but it also took a lot of energy to ride. I wasn't going to get off and walk though. The course made its way into the woods a few times, and it was a little greasy after some morning rain, so you had to be careful not to wash out. This did make some passes easier, as you could see people being timid and take another line to get around them. This downhill kind of slalom section was a lot of fun, but it was really tough to make passes because if the guy in front of you went inside, it was a long way to go around.
Inside.
Double inside, sorry.
Double inside. Nice.
Not much room there for two.
Good going, man.
I tried to shoot the gap, but got a little closer than I wanted. Those wide bars were not doing me any favors there. There was a rooted climb here that a lot of people walked, and while it was possible for any bike that was racing to ride it, it was definitely easier on a mountain bike. Most people were fine with me riding a mountain bike and actually cheered me on. That's one of the coolest things about cyclocross is that you can ride any bike, but you'll always have that one guy.
Wrong bike.
There's no wrong bike. It's a cycle.
He really just gave me some motivation to make some more passes, even though I really just wanted to recover a little bit on this second lap.
There you go. She says you're gonna ride it. Let's see it.
Gotta do it now.
Come on. Yeah.
Now I'm tired.
I had to have a little extra fun, right? This sand section is probably where the mountain bike had the biggest advantage. While it still wasn't easy, the big tires and geometry definitely helped. And this uphill road section is where the mountain bike had the biggest disadvantage. While this bike does roll really well for what it is not going to beat the speed of skinnier tires and a more laid over position. Or somebody that just has more energy than you. I did get past here, and I wasn't totally sure if he was Cat 4 or 5, so I didn't know if I should chase after him. I should have been more attentive to who I was passing early on. I had a feeling he was in my class, but I didn't want to mess up his Cat 4 race if he was in that, or push myself too far and regret it later. I did catch him and make the pass just in case, but I really didn't have much left in the legs or lungs, and then we were starting the hill side by side.
He's running faster than me. He's in shape. I'm not.
I ended up just assuming that he was in my class, so I planned to recover for a little bit before trying to put in a charge near the end. I knew he was going to be very strong in that final road section though. That didn't help. It was actually what I was worried about coming into this race, and I almost ran flats because I didn't want to watch the front, not be able to get my foot out, and fall on my bad shoulder, and I did just that. Luckily, I was fine, but this next part was much worse.
Oh, nasty.
Yep, in case you couldn't see that, I just got spit on. He obviously didn't mean to, he didn't know I was there, but still, that was gross. I tried to wipe it off on this tree, and I wanted to pop over this rock, but that whole situation threw me off a little bit. I kept cruising until the end of the lap, but I just didn't have enough left in me to push very hard. I also hoped we were going to have one more lap. It just seemed like they cut it short, and I did see the one lap board before this lap started, but I thought that might have been a mistake because it just seemed like it went too quick. I guess I was kind of half pushing, half holding back in case there was another lap. You can see how close I still managed to get to him right near the end, but with the finish line being on the road, I knew I had no chance. I did one of these races last year on the Haka gravel bike, and I definitely felt like I had more speed towards the end of that one, so maybe I would have been a little bit faster on something like that, but I had more fun, and I was a lot more comfortable on the DV9. The weirdest part of the race was probably afterwards. I was not listed on the results sheet, but there was no one in second place, so I assumed that was me. After I did not get called up to the podium, Hannah decided to go ask the scoring lady what happened. She told her that she knew she forgot about me, but she spelt my name wrong. Alrighty then, no pumpkin for me. Luckily for them, it really didn't bother me, but that was a first. Well, I'm hoping that I saved the best for last in this video because now I'm heading to a bicycle trials competition. I did make a few changes. I went back to flat pedals and I slammed the seat post down into the frame for maximum clearance. I also pulled the wheels off of the Oso. These are the Sun Ringley Duroc 37 rims with a Super Bubba rear hub. That hub is pretty cool because you can adjust it to be more durable with less drag, which is how I had it in the e-bike, or you can put it in the higher engagement setting, which is how I have it set up now, and that should help for those technical trials moves. These wheels also happen to have more aggressive tires on them, which should help with traction. I'm really looking forward to this event. I am hoping that I can ride the expert class, but I won't know for sure until I get there and check out the sections. Either way, it should be a lot of fun. This event was in Baraboo, Wisconsin, and it was the first time a bicycle trials had been held here. The sections actually looked pretty fun and rideable for me, so I decided to stick to expert. The first thing on the bike that I noticed was the faster engagement of the rear hub. It just made it quicker and easier to put power to the ground when I needed to. You are constantly ratcheting the pedals and doing small movements in trials, so less slop there is definitely appreciated. This section had a couple very narrow gates, as you can see here, and this is where the stiffness of the frame and wheels made it easier to put the tires right where I needed to. While this section probably would have been possible for me on a full suspension bike, I was definitely glad that I was on hardtail for that extra precision. This drop coming up took me a little while to figure out how I wanted to ride it. I could have went up to rear tire and dropped all the way to the bottom, but I was trying to avoid that hard landing, so I decided to roll to the end, hop the front tire to the pointy rock, and then roll on the front to clear the rear of that rock so I didn't hit it too hard and risk getting a flat. It ended up being really technical and one of my favorite parts of the event, but I definitely would not have ridden it that way on a trials bicycle. This is where the mountain bike started to make things a little bit tricky. I thought I had more room to work with here, and I didn't expect it to be very hard, but I did not have much clearance with my right pedal, so I made something work the first loop barely, and for the second loop I lined up higher and further back and took off my rear tire, which helped quite a bit. This rock was not very big, and luckily I could line up with my front foot facing away from it, but the bike limits how much you can move due to the handlebar position. A trials bike has a much longer stem, so you can get over the front end further and move your body more. I still got the job done, but that move is pretty tough on this bike. This was probably the hardest move of the day for me. It was too big to set the front tire on top, and it was downhill, so I started from pretty far back and barely got the lift to land both tires on top.
Just like that.
Besides providing more grip, these tires seem to have a much better feel at low pressure. The thicker casing seemed to slow the rebound and damping down, which helped make them more predictable. They were more likely to form around the rocks rather than fold, bottom out, or deflect off of them. The wider rims probably helped a bit there too. My tire pressure actually felt just about right. I think I only hit the rim once, and it was a soft one. I made one big mistake in this section. I went through another class's gate, and since it was the first gate of the section, I scored 0 points instead of the 60 like I thought I did. Most of our gates were really close together, and you can see that blue one there being pretty spread out, so I just didn't see it. I'm used to much bigger gates also. These are just pieces of duct tape.
It's easier that way.
But I still should have seen it and not thrown those points away. I ended up tying for the win, but because I had more clean or 60-point rides, luckily I still won the tiebreaker. I had a lot of fun riding this event, and the sections were much more enjoyable on this bike than I expected. I did do a lot of hopping, but it is trials, and I didn't want to risk taking a point by trying to ride extra smooth. Doing these events made me like this bike even more, and I hope you guys enjoyed coming along for 3 very different rides. Maybe it will even motivate you to try something new. If nothing else, I hope this video was a good reminder that you are never on the wrong bike. As long as it is legal to ride, it stays in one piece, and you are having fun, that's all that matters. Thanks for watching.